Yeah, this isn't gonna work. This right here is the cheapest Sony PVM monitor you could get, probably, back in the day. What's CRT? The old tube TVs. What's a PVM? Professional version of the old tube TVs. These are pretty highly sought after, so I bought the cheapest one because money. I actually bought it as for parts are not working off eBay, but after talking to the guy, it sounded like he just didn't have something to hook it up to. So I gambled on a broken PVM for about $100 after shipping. And well, I'd say that works pretty well for a broken monitor. And actually, if you've seen this carrying handle, I mean, it's portable. I took this to the beach with me and played some Melee with one of my friends. But after playing, we noticed that the bottom looks a little scrunched up here. After looking it up, that's kind of a common issue on these. It's something called vertical linearity, which we don't really need to worry about what it is, but basically it means that gets scrunched up there. And these actually came with little potentiometers to adjust the linearity, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's something a little more serious than that. And now, I think this just comes off, yep. I think I'm seeing a bit of beach sand on here. The cool thing about PVMs is that they're usually pretty modular. I mean, for a normal CRT, it's one circuit board on the bottom and the tube. But for these, you've got the output board, you've got two boards on either side for color and for the geometry, and then on the bottom, you've also got a board for power and sending the circuit up to the tube itself. The scrunching is going to be an issue with the geometry, which is just the shape of the video as it comes out on the tube. Alright, so I figured out that this is the geometry board. And the way I can tell is, I'm not sure if you can read it here, but there are 10 potentiometers, or spots for potentiometers here, and they each read VLIN, video phase, VANG, which are all types of geometry terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this board out and inspect it and just look at it. Alright, well now I have access to all the potentiometers in here. One of them actually looks broken. Which one is that? Oh, would you believe it? That's the vertical linearity one. What I suspect is the issue are these capacitors. Reading online, what many people do is they adjust the VLIN as far as it can go, and it helps a little bit, but the crunch doesn't go away. And it seems like on these smaller units, capacitors seem to be the main problem. So what I'm going to do is take this board out and replace as many capacitors as I possibly can. Well, starting off, I can see one major issue. That doesn't have that. Oh, there it is, actually. Well, okay. Yeah, this is missing its cap. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say someone was screwing with this before I got my hands on it. And I'm going to go on another limb here and say this is probably... Yeah, that's maxed out. Well, that's a shame. Whatever clips that held this in are broken now. But that's adjusted to the max, so it's still most likely a capacitor issue somewhere in here. So now I think it's about time to fall back on my trusty boxes of capacitors. There were 4 specifically that someone online recommended replacing. One of them was one of these, and the rest were in this box. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you how to recap one capacitor, and then I'm going to do the rest myself. So I'm going to start with this big one right here. That seems to be a culprit of many problems. So first, you set down the soldering iron so you don't burn anything. First, you check the number. This is C532. And then you go to the back side, find C532 right here. Shows you negative and positive. Once you've identified the capacitor or whatever component you're removing, a good practice is to add some fresh solder, especially if what you're adding to is old, like this being 20-something years old. The solder can get a little tough to work with, and adding fresh solder will make it easier to melt, really. And with that added, I'm going to get my desoldering gun. Stick it on there, suck it out. Do the same for the other leg. And now you can get your regular soldering iron. Heat up one leg, and then pull it out a little bit. Then heat up the other leg. Pull it out just a little more. And you kind of just shimmy it out. And there you go. Now it's desoldered. Now we got to find the value on this. This is 25 volts, 1000 microfarads. And when you're looking for replacements, the voltage doesn't matter as long as it's bigger. So microfarads is what it actually does. 16 volts is how much it can hold. So since I'm trying to replace a 25 volts, 16 volts is too low. But if I put a 50 volt in there, as long as it fits, it'll be fine. And for capacitors, for electrolytic capacitors, these ones that come in a cylinder like this white line shows the negative leg. Also, the negative leg is shorter. So when you're putting it in, it does matter whether it's negative or positive. So follow what the board tells you to do. This one's telling me positive is on the right here. Stick it through. And what I like to do to keep the capacitor in place is bend the legs like this. Now it doesn't want to fall out. Finally, just add some solder. And then finally, you just want to clip off these legs. So they don't short against anything. And that's one capacitor down. And one other good thing to do is to mark the capacitors that you have done, so you don't accidentally do the same one twice. And when you're going back in here, you can see what have I replaced, what needs to be replaced, so on. Preferably with an actual Sharpie. Now, I haven't done all of these, if you couldn't tell, but I did do the main four that people recommend, which is C529, C537, C530, C553, and C532. And this data is all on the CRT database, so I'll link that below if you want to take a peep. But what I want to do is throw this back into the CRT and see if it works. Alright, I think that's everything. Let's temporarily put in there. Alright, moment of truth time. Please don't blow up. Okay, no smoke. It's making the noise. Flyback's working. Hey, okay, so it works. And it works! Oh my gosh! I don't know why I'm so surprised. It's actually kind of scrunched on the top now, but that's probably because the potentiometer was all the way turned. Well, I'm blown away. That actually worked. Wow. Well, now I can do some adjustments. And I feel a little obliged to make a small disclaimer here. When you're working on CRTs, there's thousands and thousands of volts that go through this tube. And you may be at liability of injuring or killing yourself if you touch the wrong thing. Now, I'm just going to throw a fact out there that I have not found any sightings of anyone dying working on a CRT. But that being said, Don't be an idiot, do your research, and you'll probably be fine. Well, it's not perfect, and I'm running into one of the issues of having like the lowest end one of these you can get, being they didn't put much in the way of adjustability, especially compared to higher end monitors. So I don't think there's a rotation potentiometer, or there's a couple of others I could use here. But anyways, I'm super happy with this. This is awesome. This is like perfect for what I need it for now. So I think I'm good to just put it back together. And that does it. I'm really happy with this. I honestly expected a lot more work, and honestly that it wasn't going to work. But really, yeah, it was just 4 caps that everybody says you need to replace them. I replaced them and it worked. This probably isn't the last you'll be seeing of this monitor, because I'm going to be using it from now on to test this piece of crap who's got video artifacts and a couple of other projects I need to work on. And that's all I've got today, so thanks for watching. See you around.